Process makes it sound so organized. It was a journey of 4 to 5 months before the kids were going to convene in the suburb of St. Louis. We talked on Zoom to hundreds of kids who were headed to the program, who wanted to talk to us. And then from there whittled it down to a smaller group that we then went to visit in Missouri in their homes to see what they had on their walls, to meet their families, meet their dogs, to watch them do their extracurricular activities. We met all kinds of amazing people, but then it was pretty clear who that very small group was that was gonna be comfortable and with having a camera on them for as much as we were gonna have a camera on them. And they just had the confidence, the political confidence and ambition to do well in the Girl State program. So we wanted to follow them for that reason, but they also had this sort of emotional intelligence and confidence to share how they were feeling while a camera was on them, which is really not everybody. And so we were lucky enough to have met 7 extraordinary kids who all had very different paths through the program and different backgrounds. And that was important to us, you know, kid from a small rural town, you know, a very conservative kid, a very liberal kid, all that stuff. We needed the range of kids that we found.
The surprises of the film are the surprises we hope for in documentary filmmaking, which is just going on these journeys with people that are unexpected, and they surprise us. They surprise themselves. With Emily in particular, her path through Girl State, her race for governor. This is somebody who's announced she's going to run for president in 2040, and to watch where she ends up after this week-long experience is remarkable. And I think it's exciting to invite audiences to go on that journey with her, but also the other girls who come to know themselves in, I think, very profound ways and confront surprising defeats and new friendships and remarkable upset victories, just in all of the dramas that a week of Girl State can contain. I think we capture it all, and it certainly, I don't think we could have predicted. We know enough not to try to predict how people are going to do in this program. I think it's a real crucible. I think what was exciting about the race for governor is we have candidates we're following who have very different strategies, and we get to see how they all go through this difficult process in different ways. So I think that's a surprise. I think also watching the girls come to question the disparities in funding and resources and expectations between the two programs was not something we anticipated. We knew that the programs would be held concurrently on campus, which is a first in their 80-year history, but had no understanding that would figure so significantly in the drama. And I think comments so powerfully on the state of our society as a whole, on the diminished expectations and lower resources available to women, and as explanations for why they're not in more positions of political power and more equitably represented in the halls of power in our country.
Watching the film with the girls at Sundance was extraordinary and kind of exceeded even, I knew it was going to be exciting, you know, to watch the film on a big screen with a big audience with our big cast. But I think it was so emotional for all of us. I think for the reasons we've been talking about, which is representation. Here were these incredibly bright, beautiful young leaders giving it their all, and having a room full of, 1,300 people respond to that, cheer for them, cry for them, laugh. There was a lot of laughter. That was great, because I think all these things are part of the human experience. And to me, documentary, you know, needs all of those things. But to have that big embrace was hugely meaningful, not obviously to us just as storytellers, but hugely meaningful to all those kids. And then they got the stage afterwards to do a Q&A and speak their mind, speak their truth, be themselves, and they're powerful people. So that was an extraordinary moment.
Well, we have two teenage daughters. Zoe is now 17, but she worked as a production assistant on Girl State, celebrated her 16th birthday during production, serenaded by 500 girls, which was terrifying and memorable for her. Our 14-year-old couldn't work on the film, but we shared a rough cut with her. We told her all about production, and she had an important note. She said afterwards.
Hold on. During production, I just want to make it clear that all the kids at the camp, one of the icebreakers really was like singing songs together. So kids who'd never met and whose politics were diametrically opposed would sing a lot of songs together. And not surprisingly, one of the great unifying anthems, or many of them, were Taylor Swift songs. So I'd explain this to our 14-year-old, how many Taylor Swift songs all these kids at camp would burst out, and they knew every single word, and it was like full-throated, like it was very joyful. And so when Abby, our 14-year-old, watched, it was part of a rough cut screening, people had notes, but her note was, she was disappointed that there was not one of these Taylor Swift sing-alongs. She's a Swiftie. So she said that was a real disappointment that there was no Taylor Swift in the movie. And so what happened then?
Well, we said that's a good note, and we wanted to use a Taylor Swift song, "The Man," which is perfect for the end credits of the film, and we were able to get permission to use it, and I think we found the right place in the right way and the right song for Taylor Swift to be in the movie. So I think that's credit to Abby for showing us the way.
I think that actually was a different part of my experience making Girl State from making Boy State, was feeling there was this other theme to explore, namely the lack of female representation in our country, which I think we worked very hard to make clear as a stake at the beginning of the film in the title sequence, just reminding people, because it's sort of been such a fact of our country for so long that it's not something that I think people talk about enough, frankly, or question enough, frankly. So, this current Congress is 118th Congress, I think, has the most women representatives that we've ever had, but it's only 28%, which is just, if you think about it, even for one more second than usual, it's just so outrageous to me. In my lifetime, right? All these firsts, the first elected governor who didn't get the position because her husband had died, in my lifetime, the first Supreme Court justice, in my lifetime, the first Speaker of the House, all these firsts in just my lifetime, let alone my grandmother's lifetime was still when women couldn't vote. So it's all kind of recent. And I think that I just, in making this film, it all became much clearer to me also what these kids are up against. I hadn't really recognized it so clearly as myself as a teenager, but to watch them go through a program that lacks the equitable funding, to watch them go through a program that has different expectations for these girls who are just as ambitious, just as smart, just as educated as the boys, was just, it was to see it so visible in my face was actually kind of shocking, really. And anyway, to meet these girls who know this is what they're up against, and certainly the Roe v. Wade decision coming out or leaking a week before they all convened at this session, it was on their mind. To have it sort of be this bittersweet moment of empowerment in the program, but also bitter in the sense of a reminder of all the everything that they were also going to be up against was just, I found it refreshing to be with kids who could hold both those truths at the same time, be both energized and aware of what they're up against. Not naive, but optimistic.
I think the film has a lot of takeaways. I think it's the power of the story. It's about 7 girls who have this experience. I think you can come and make a connection with different girls, maybe one or maybe more, but I think, and they come from across the political spectrum. They have very different backgrounds. And I think they're all committed to throw themselves into this process, to speak truth to power. They're incredibly impressive. And so I think that the film has many takeaways. I think it's part of the value of these films too, both Boy State and Girl State, is we live in such divided political times. And I think the film creates a space for conversation for people of different backgrounds. I mean, the program brings people together from different backgrounds, but the films themselves, I think, continue that conversation in theaters and in living rooms at home after you watch it. You can identify with characters who are different. You can see things differently depending on who you are and what's important to you. But I think ultimately it celebrates a couple of values and virtues in American life. One is that democracy is not a spectator sport, that you have to throw yourself into this process to make it better. And it's a continual process. And that what's inspiring about this film is that these young women are not deterred by the divisiveness of our times. They are committed to reach across the aisle and forge connections and friendships with one another despite differences. And I think that's a hopeful message that audiences, regardless of their backgrounds, will take away from this story. We actually contemplated Girl State before we made Boy State. We were contacting the both programs in Texas. And actually, we ended up getting access to Boy State first. And that was actually the program that had drawn our attention initially, was Boy State had voted to secede from the Union in 2017 in Texas, and that was the subject of some news attention. So that caught our eye, but we were just intrigued by the program for both boys and girls and wanted to explore it. And so we ended up getting access to Boy State, and it was a good time to do that. And but always in our mind was the desire to and really need to make this companion film. We call it a sibling, not a sequel. And so immediately after finishing Boy State in 2020, premiering the film, and the reception the film got, we were motivated to begin conversations with Girl State programs around the country and audition them, and wanted to leave Texas. The country's big and diverse, and so we ended up finding a program in Missouri that we loved, and it's an interesting state politically. And so in 2022, we went to Missouri to make Girl State. I think the approach to Girl State was similar but different. I mean, the program is similar in that it lasts a week and it's run in ways that were familiar to us, but it was important to us to let the story be what it would be and not impose a sort of arbitrary structure on it. And that meant 2 important differences with Girl State. One was we had a much bigger cast. We have 7 girls in the film. Boy State has 4 boys. And 2 is we made room for a second storyline. It's not just running for governor, which is the highest office at Girl State. It's the formation of the Supreme Court, an all-female Supreme Court. It's going to hear one case. In this case, it's an abortion case. And so we had big cast, 2 stories, and we weren't sure we could accommodate all of that in a single film, but we needed to try. And also just to kind of surrender to where the story took us individually with all of these 7 characters. And it was quick to shoot, but very long to edit, over a year, just to figure out how to put the pieces together and to make sure that everything that remained really belonged in the film. And I think importantly, to approximate emotionally the experience we as directors had going through this with the girls that we had cast. I think that's really important. The film is not a sort of clinical, political exercise. It's really an emotional experience, getting to know these young women. And I think capturing that emotional journey was important.